Hey friends, and welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to be doing another bi-monthly wrap-up and be talking about all of the books I finished in July and August. So I actually only finished 4 books in the months of July and August, and that is why I'm really enjoying my bi-monthly TBR and wrap-up format that I'm currently doing on my channel, as I actually only read 1 book in July. So if I was doing monthly wrap-ups, I would have just been talking about 1 book, and that would have been a very boring video. So the first and only book that I did finish in July was Beautiful World, Where Are You by Sally Rooney, and that makes sense as to why it was the only book I read in July, because after I finished this, there was no way I was going to be able to pick up another book, because it just wasn't going to compare, because I, of course, loved this. So I was actually really nervous about picking this one up because I'd heard a lot of mixed reviews, including Shah from Thoroughly Enjoyed Books, not really enjoying it and DNFing it, I think, twice now. Victoria, from what Victoria read, tried to listen to it on audiobook and couldn't get into it. And yeah, that made me really scared. So I did sort of go in expecting to dislike it. And I think that helped me because Sally Rooney definitely does something slightly different in this book, but like I said, I loved what she did with it, and it was still a very Sally Rooney-esque book. So there were some very similar things, but also some very different things, but I loved all of it. So this one is written in a sort of multiple point of view style, and it follows 4 different characters and their points of view. So we've got Alice, Eileen, Simon and Felix, and Alice and Eileen have been best friends since university. Alice is a writer and lives in has recently moved to a kind of small town or village in Ireland away from Dublin, and Simon and Eileen, I think, live in Dublin, but Simon sometimes goes to London, and Felix lives in this small town and village that Alice has just moved to. But the thing that I think I enjoyed the most about this, which is the thing that I think a lot of people maybe disliked, was that a lot of the chapters are just email correspondence between Eileen and Alice, and it's basically just a sort of stream of consciousness type email where they're just talking about anything and everything that they hate about the world they currently live in, or that they have questions about the world that they currently live in, and it goes from obviously politics to archaeology, weirdly, and that's one thing I adored. I also really enjoyed the general setup of this. So all 4 characters, so you know that Alice and Eileen, who are emailing each other, have been best friends for a really long time, but they haven't seen each other for ages, especially because Alice has recently moved, obviously, a bit further out. Eileen and Simon, obviously, their kind of relationship, and then Alice meets Felix on a Tinder date, and things just kind of like unravel from there. So again, it's Sally Rooney doing what she does best, and it's just uncovering all of the different emotions and things that you feel in these different types of relationships. And I think, again, she's just done it so well. I adored Alice and Felix's relationship, I think, the most, but then towards the end I also really liked Eileen's and Simon's. And the only thing I would say that I don't really think is a spoiler, but all 4 of the characters don't actually meet until right at the end of the book, or towards the end of the book, and you just know with the build up that something's going to happen. And again, we just get a very like Sally Rooney-esque situation happening, and I was crying my eyes out. So yes, I laughed, I cried, I felt like Sally Rooney was inside my head with some of the email correspondence between Alice and Eileen, where they talk about, like I say, the beautiful world, where are you? Because the world we currently live in is not the one. Yes, and another thing I found super interesting was, because Alice is a writer, I felt like Sally Rooney was trying to let the audience and her readers know a bit more about how she feels as a writer and her popularity, because some of the things that Alice says, I kind of felt like it was Sally Rooney telling us how she felt in like how famous she's become and how people take and read her books and kind of, I guess, put her on this pedestal, and was essentially talking about me and all of her fan base see people and how she doesn't really like that and it's weird. And I was like, I understand that. So yes, like I said, I felt like Sally Rooney was giving a little bit more of herself in this one through Alice as well. And so of course when I finished this I did give it 5 out of 5 stars. Now moving on to the books that I read in August. So the first one I finished was Two Gentlemen of Verona by William Shakespeare, and this kicks off my reading the entire works of Shakespeare challenge I've set for myself, where I plan to read one every month, and I may or may not have already fallen behind on that, but it's totally fine. But this was a great one to start with. So following the chronology of William Shakespeare's entire works in these Penguin Classics editions, because there's a list in them, The Two Gentlemen of Verona comes first. And like I said, it was just a great one to start with. So this one is a comedy, and this one follows two best friends, Protus and Valentine, who are the two gentlemen of Verona. And Protus basically leaves his town and his beloved Julia to go to Milan to visit Valentine. During that journey, lots of crazy things happen, but Protus falls in love with the girl that Valentine is in love with, and obviously it all gets very messy. Julia then travels to Milan in disguise as Sebastian to obviously tell Protus that she loves him, but then when she turns up she realises that he is now fallen in love with this other woman, and it all, it being Shakespeare, it just gets very out of hand. But again, like I said, it was a great one to start with because it was very easy to understand. It had me in fits of giggles, and what I really liked about it actually was that it had a very happy ending, as the comedies do, and everything just tied up very nicely together. So yes, I would highly recommend this one if you maybe want to try Shakespeare. There are only certain ones I would maybe recommend to beginners, but after reading this is one I would recommend as well. I do find it very hard to rate Shakespeare's plays because I just generally enjoy them, but I did give this one 4 out of 5 stars. And the next book I finished in August was The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz, and this one, I'm so glad I picked this one up after recently finishing Healing is the New High by Vex King, because I felt like it supported or followed on from that very nicely. As in Healing is the New High, Vex King does state that he got inspiration for one particular chapter and activity from this book, and I can completely understand why. And what I really enjoyed was that it was my favourite part of Healing is the New High, an activity, which is essentially going through loads of other bad stuff and previous activities to find out the sort of incorrect beliefs you tell yourself based on things that happened to you when you were younger, or like traumatic events that have happened to you. So your brain is hardwired into thinking of yourself and the world around you in a certain way, and essentially the activity I liked the best was coming up with your new beliefs about yourself and the world. And it's the one thing that I have carried on since finishing Healing is the New High. I go back to my new beliefs almost every day and read them just as a reminder. So obviously what I really liked was to see where Vex King got that original idea from, i.e. from the Four Agreements. So essentially this one is very simplistic in its idea, and I kind of thought going into it that I was going to be a bit bored or kind of think that it was a bit obvious, which it definitely is, but at the same time there's something that the author does is explain its historical aspect as well, because it is actually based on ancient Toltec wisdom, so you get a little bit about the history and where it comes from, and then obviously the author goes straight into the Four Agreements. There's a chapter on each agreement, and then at the end a few chapters on what to do going forward, i.e. putting those agreements into practice. And like I said, as simplistic and obvious as it is, it's actually pretty life-changing, and I think that's kind of the point that the author is trying to get across, is that, actually it's not as easy as you would think it is to put these four agreements into perspective or like into practice in your life, as they are just stating them in a book. But if you do put them into practice, then your life becomes basically you become free of all the horridness in life, and I do agree with that. But for instance, just to give you a quick idea, I will run through the 4 agreements with you, just so you kind of, like I say, get a basic understanding of what they are about. But the first one is be impeccable with your word. So basically, don't spread gossip, don't unnecessarily be horrible or rude or nasty. Very simple, easy things. The second agreement is don't take anything personally, which I can highly relate to because I take almost everything personally. Agreement number 3 is the one that I have to constantly keep reminding myself of and have been, and it's actually helped me a lot. And that is don't make assumptions. I make assumptions all the time to the point where it's silly, it's ridiculous. For example, I just make the assumption that someone's annoyed at me, even when the person hasn't done anything. There's obviously a belief inside myself that makes me think that, no, I'm not likable, or people don't like me, or I don't know, it's very strange. So yes, I'm constantly reminding myself, do not make assumptions. And the 4th agreement is to always do your best, which is essentially to follow the first 3 agreements. Obviously, the book does a lot of a better job explaining them and gives exact sort of examples, and I found it very useful, and I actually want to put the 4 agreements on my bedroom wall as just a little reminder every single time I wake up to, follow them to live a freer, happier life. And the last book I finished in August was a very, 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 very interesting one. But that is You Made a Fool of Death with Your Beauty by Akwaeke Emezi. So this is obviously the new Akwaeke Emezi book, and it's a romance novel. It's very spicy, and it gets very spicy very quickly, but it's also very complex and very deep. And I will be honest, this was a bit of a roller coaster for me, I guess, because reading it, I just didn't know what to expect, because obviously I've read an Akwaeke Emezi before, and that was Pet, which is of course a young adult / children's book. I would say it's more of a young adult book, and the writing was fantastic and I loved it, lyrical, beautiful, so I was expecting that. But in terms of the storyline, again, because with Pet, Akwaeke Emezi did something really clever, and I wasn't sure whether to expect that from this or not, because obviously it's not just classified, but it's classified as a romance novel. So I was like, is it just going to be a spicy romance novel with a happy ending, or are there going to be deep themes that are going to be explored? And yes, there were deep themes that were explored, and I think that is the thing that I loved the most about this. But I do think because it took me a while to realise that's what the book was going to do, I was kind of unsure of what to expect, and I didn't know what kind of book I was reading, whether I should have been rooting for the spiciness or for the deep storylines. It all got a bit kind of complicated in my mind. But when I finished it, I did really enjoy it. A lot of people do have a kind of issue with this because of one of the people, the main character, Faye, ends up dating. And again, that's another kind of reason I wasn't sure what to expect, because there are several people that she dates and I was never sure who was going to be endgame, and I like to know who's going to be endgame when I'm kind of reading a book. If I'm unsure, then I'm a bit kind of I don't know, because I don't want to root for the wrong person, which I kind of did do, and then something happens that I was really kind of shocked at and wasn't sure I was going to enjoy. But like I said, towards the end, because of the themes this book explored, especially to do with love and loss and grief, I did actually really enjoy it. I also don't want to give too much away about the synopsis of this, because I do think it ruins it, because again, looking back in hindsight, I think my feelings of being up and down and not really sure what the book was going to do maybe added to it as well, because it kind of gives you an insight into how people see love and relationships in a sort of 2D way a lot of the time, when actually there's a lot more going on in the background, and there's other reasons why certain people connect over other people and things like that. But I did end up giving this one 4 out of 5 stars. And the other book I do want to mention that I, like I said, have read half of in the months of July and August is of course The Good Enough Life by Avram Alpert that I have mentioned in several videos already. I will also leave a link in the description to a video I did recently on how I got kind of sucked into toxic productivity, as this book kind of opened my eyes to a lot of that. I am exactly halfway through. Obviously a lot of it is just references, so I do want to carry on reading this one in the coming months so I can discuss this one a little bit more, but again, it's one I am really enjoying. So those are all of the books that I read in July and August. Please let me know in the comments your favourite book that you read either in July or August. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you soon in my next video. Bye!